Hey, good morning members. Welcome back. This is Clayton, part 3, and it's the fun part. We're going to just tie things up from where we left them off in part 2. We'll tie these back wires up. We'll tie these 2 layers together, and then we'll do a little bit of, coiling and bead balls and maybe a few other things in the front here. But there's not much today, just this little bit of fun stuff. So I cleaned up my pendant off camera, and since we'll take a quick pause. I'll tell you about sanding then. So here's how I roll. You could have sanded these if you pulled them out to hammer them while they were out. If you put them all back like I did, and then you just prefer to sand over all of them, you don't want to sand over your stone. So for my new members, teacher's a Post-it note queen. I use these for everything. They come from the dollar store. They have the perfect little sticky gunk in the back. Just enough to help you hold on to things, but not so sticky that you're going to leave any residue on your piece. So here's how I go. I cover the stone like this, and then I take my 800 grit wet dry sandpaper from the hardware store, or you can go Dremel, but real easy to just sit here and now sand out your beautiful hammered pieces without stressing out your stone or yourself about possibly scratching up your stone. So do like that, work around to these side bits here. I had a heck of a lot of sanding to try to get that divot out, and it's still not 100% out, but it's probably out good enough. And let's see. So that's how I do it. Okay? So back here, we'll start with a foot of 28 gauge, and I'll just start to tie some of these bits back here together. Okay? So I've got my bucket of various size copper beads. There's a bunch of earring wires in here too, but that's no issue. And I have no plan. I'm just going to roll with it and see what Clayton wants to do. So here I go. I'll start in the back just to get the utility bits out of the way. To clean this up, if you have any weird bends or anything, of course we know that we can get our bent nose pliers and very carefully love tap things back into nice elegance if you have weird bumps anywhere. Not every bump is a weird bump, so don't go crazy with that. Don't cause more nicks like I almost did. But you're just going to love tap everything until you're happy with it. If you want to do any coiling, or if you want to do half round for texture or hammer, these bare wires, do it now before we tie them back, right? So you don't have to do it, but if you wanted to hammer, say, these curves right here and this little curve right here, it's, easy to do while they're not attached. I'm not going to hammer those. I'm just going to stay with what I got in the middle. And I'll take my foot of 28 gauge, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is get this guy tied on. There's a nice spot right here. So I'll slip half of my wire through. Ooh, you gotta fiddle it. Let's see. Slip it through right there and put a little end curve on that wire. Ooh, like that. So then when it comes back, it's easier for you to grab. Goes up, you see? So slip it through. I know that I have to tie these 2 layers together too, so this foot is going to accomplish this one and these 2. So I'll get the majority of the wire fed through so that I can tie it over here, and I'll just use, a third of it or so to tie this guy on. So I fed it through. I'll just loop him. Make sure he's against your side the way you want it. And then obviously if we just put a little hook bend at the end and we whittle our way Ooh, through this back side here and get our tie on that guy. Do that maybe 3 times, make it real secure. Something went somewhere. There it is. Finally. For as difficult as that was, I might just do 2. And then, you know, this little loop is more open than it should be. So once you get it tied up, squeeze that closed, make sure it's laying down and that, you know, there's nothing pokey on the chest there. So I'll leave that there in case I want to attempt a 3rd one later on, but probably not. That was so difficult. Then I'll take this one right here. I can just stretch over. I don't think I'll see that. Nah. And then these bare spots back here. Easy tie, just go through all 4 of them. And I would do several, maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6. Let's see what we get. There's 2. There goes 3. These are 2 big layers, and so I'm going to make, you know, as more than enough to make sure they stay steady throughout the lifetime of this pendant. Just keep them nice and neat. It'll be attractive from the front. You know, you're only wrapping these 4 right here in the back. So there's nothing in the front, you see? You can see me right here. I'm wrapping right here. Just those back layers. And I'm going, you know, through right here. In between them. So I had a couple members email and ask about my hands. Sometimes you see some bruising that are on my fingers and such, and you know, here and such, my knuckles and such. It's okay. Nothing is wrong. It's the way I work out. That's it. So nothing weird about that. But thank you for your concern. It has nothing to do with the wire work. All right, so I think I'll get 1 or 2 more. After a few of those, we'll just give good tension right here, make big circles until it breaks. And that's pretty good. We can do the same with this one right here. Just make big circles until it breaks. And then that side is nice and secure. Shouldn't go anywhere. And then also these 2 layers now. You see what that tie did? They don't lift out from each other anymore. Okay? So let's get, there's a lot of 28 gauge we're going to use today. So let's get another foot of 28 gauge and we'll figure out how we tie these guys down here. All right, before I tie those down, I'm going to that these 2 are laying the way I want them to. And again, you know, use delicate touches and taps. If you want to hammer them or weave them, do it now. Like that's a nice little weave you could do there if you want to. I'm not going to do any of that. And then let's examine where we can tie it where it won't really be offensive or showing. And probably I'm going to have to shorten these. I could tie them together here, but then if I come around my weave at all, you see it'll be quite visible, that tie. So I might try to get this one a little bit lower, the inside one. so that I can attach it here, and then I'll just attach this one to this one. Okay, so all I have to do is take it and make a tiny little roll. It's not a big deal. It's only a couple of millimeters. Just pull it down to be a little bit closer so I can get it right there. Those two I may not have to tie. I might just whip this little hook behind them and just tie this one. So I look to the front. That didn't do anything to my design, so that works. Okay, so I'll get another foot of 28 gauge. And here we go again. Passing under this side to get my wire in there, or wherever you can get it, you know. This is where your bent nose also helps quite a bit. Pull it through. So I'm going to leave, you know, a few inches over here in case I need to do anything. Just make sure I got that guy. See if I can get underneath this whole stack again. This side's a little easier, I think. There it is. Careful when you pull. Sometimes it's so tight it'll break your 28 gauge. No big deal. Just get another one. Okay, so let's make 2 or 3 little wraps, whatever you can get in there. Try to get at least a couple really good ones, but or if you're watching this ahead, you know that you got to tie this, so don't make that, you know, make it tight. It has to be tight, but just know that you got to get in there. It works. You just got to find the little spot where the wire goes. And there always is one little spot somewhere. And I don't worry about, you know, whether I'm to the right or to the left. I just try to get it in there. And as soon as it pokes its head out, I get it with my plier. Okay, that's probably pretty good. Whoop. That's probably pretty good for those right there. So what I think I can do is travel along here a little bit with some stretch coils, and then either, you know, just tie them together right there at that little intersection. The other thing I might do right here, it's real easy to turn this hook for this outer wire down and then around that guy a little bit, just so it's hooked. We'll still grab it with the tie, but makes it a little cleaner and make sure it lays down and doesn't change your design in front. Okay? All right, and let's just stretch coil up a little ways. So heads up, if there's a little thing like this, a real sharp turn at the tiny end, don't think that you can just run your finger over it. It can cut you. So when the little ones, when it's sharp like that at the end, cut it off rather than try to pull it out with your finger. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of stretch coils to get up here. So there's one. You could do cleaner coils if you want to. Side-by-side coils if you want to. For the sake of time, I'm just going to make a few stretch coils. Whoop. And get up there. Two should be enough. I like the number 3. A lot of times I do stuff in 3. Here we go. if I can. That's good enough. All right, so then I'll make a couple of single ones right down here just to end it. I like to do the single coils following these, double pieces because it has less chance of unraveling. See, that spot is, if I left it cut right there, ooh, I didn't get that third one. It's okay, I'll sneak it underneath there. But if you leave, big stretches like this, sometimes, it can unravel if it's in a spot that jiggles. So by going a few more times, those two pieces would do like that over time. So if you continue the wire and just do a few single coils or even weave against these two, maybe we'll take 3 or 4 weave stitches, it'll stabilize it. So I did a couple of single coils on that top frame wire right there. It's curved, so you got to push the wire up. Stay on this side of it. Now I'll come down here and just do once around this guy. And I'll just go back up and do 360 around this top guy. It seems like a lot, but these little stitches matter over time, I have found, to keep your piece together. You just want to make them neat, pretty, and clean. I got myself inside, so I'll just get a figure 8 kind of one. And whatever you can get between these two, just a few stitches back and forth. Make your hook a little better than mine. Mine is, could have been probably a little deeper and cleaner in there, but that's all right. So you get the idea there. Make sure that none of that is offensive. Do a few stitches and then break the wires out. Okay, keep it nice and neat. Hold right there. Oop. Big circles and break it out. This one too now, hold right there, do big circles until it breaks. Okay, so that's pretty good. Stabilized those two, see they don't jiggle. And it leaves nice little lines back here. If you want it to show a little more, you could probably still pull it out just a little bit. Okay, just like that, you guys. All right, woo, there goes that. Now let's talk about, before we stitch up and do some funny works in the front, let's talk about these loops right here and the nature of this pendant. So most pendants, we have a bail, right? And the bail floats on a chain. So your necklace, your pendant goes like this, floats a chain. This one has a dedicated chain because this is nothing without the chain. It's just a thing. It's just our, wrapped beautiful Clayton. But until we add jump rings and a chain, it can't really be worn. And it's dedicated chain. So when you go to sell this, if you're making this for sale, I mention this because sometimes we price our pendant and we say that, you know, for 20 bucks more you can have the chain. Well, on this particular piece, you have to dedicate a chain to the piece. There is no option for that, so you need to build that price into your price for the whole thing. So you don't just call it a pendant, you call it, you know, the pendant necklace. Necklace means this guy's coming with it no matter what. And then you put your 20 bucks on there because the chain comes with the piece, right? Okay, so that makes sense. So now let's look at our front here and let's see what we do. So I like to put some bead balls on a wire and then just kind of float them around here and see what I like. So that's probably the first thing I'm going to do is I will get some 28 gauge and just some scrap 28 gauge down here so you can kind of visualize what you want to do. And I'll line these up. So here's about 4 inches of just one of the scrap 28s that I broke off. And I have a groovy little bit of a channel right here. I might be able to do big bead ball, a little bit smaller, smaller, smaller into a small one. So that's my first idea. So I'll grab the biggest one I got, which is 5 millimeter. And let's see, this one might be 4 millimeter. They're all out of their buckets, so I don't really know their millimeters, but I'm guessing that's usually what I order is 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.5. So this one is a little bit smaller. No, it's not. It's the same size. Get a little smaller one. There it is. And then I'll get a really small one. Okay, and there's 4 nice graduating pieces, you know, in size of beads. And so now I can just go, do they look good here? You know, if I hold it up here and I do like this, do I love that? Do I want that there? Yeah, I think I do, but I actually probably put another little one right there just to close it and get it to this wire so I can tie it. And of course I've got tons of stuff I can tie it to below. So I like the way that looks. And I'll just fit them in there. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, but you can figure out what you want to do. And this is probably enough wire, but I'm going to I'm going to get a fresh piece of wire, because that one's been worked, so it's probably brittle, and we don't want brittle wire. And then I think also I'm going to switch up to 26 gauge, rats, just put this here in my chain. I'm going to switch up to 26 gauge wire to tie these on, which is just a smidge thicker than the 28 we've been weaving with, because it's a little more substantial for, you know, just the tie on the beads. You can still use 28 if you want to. You can actually even use 22.5 if you want to. So I'll get a spot of 26 gauge. All right, so I've got my 26 gauge wire. And since I know that I want one of the beads going, you know, the littlest one kind of going right there, I'm just going to pre-feed this wire through this spot. Let me change this a little bit, see if we can get a smidge closer. A little closer. All right. So right through, this is the channel I want to be in with my beads. So right through that spot and to the back, I will dive my 26 gauge right through there. There's a nice convenient place to tie onto right there. Give myself about an inch, maybe 2. Actually, give yourself a couple inches. There's plenty here, and 6 inches. Okay, and then I'll make sure that this wire actually goes into the crevice where I want my first bead. And these are not tied yet, so if I got to scooch, you know, if I got to scooch a little bit, I can scooch a little bit. And I'll get my first little one on there. Let me anchor down back here actually so I don't have to hold it. just however you can anchor. You know, this is a good spot. These wires are a good spot. I think I'm just going to go right through here. Why not? Because that's where I wrap those two frames together. This is 26 gauge, so a couple of wraps is usually enough. It's bigger wire. Ooh. And that should hold steady right there. And then as a bonus, it gives our two layers a little extra wire right here because we just wrapped them with that 28. Now we've got a nice big 26 on them also. Okay, cut it off way in here where it'll never be felt. Give it a little tap. Okay, so now here in the front we're anchored and we're in place. So now the fun part, start to add your little beads. Here goes my 1.5, 2, or maybe that's 3. Maybe the first one was 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here we go. Millimeter. Gonna slide them all down here and work them into place. Make sure that they don't protrude too much. I always like to set them in a little bit. So you see me just press it a little bit. So I don't do this stretch business right here either. There's room for one more before I make it to the wire that I can tie onto. Right? I also need to tie this wire onto the frame, so that intersection right there is actually a really good one if I can get up there. So let me see, I'll add a couple more beads, but I'm going to graduate down in size now. So we've got our big, you know, the big 5 millimeters, the big focal one there, and now above it I'll go a little smaller again. That's too big even still, so I'll take it down another one. Maybe it's not too big. Maybe that's okay, actually. I want to put a littler one in here. This is a big stretch of beads, so like all things, we're probably going to need to stitch it down in the middle. But what I don't like to do is stitch my beads to my beautiful hammered wire. I don't prefer that, so I'll show you how to pin these down. See, this is a big long stretch, and you could leave it there, but see what can happen? It can pull away. So it's only curved and sitting lovely because I put it there. But over wear and time, it might shift. So what I like to do is dive wire through those openings and then find a place to secure back here. I'll show us that. It's, you know, it's a bit of a pain, but it makes, you know, you don't have to do it at every one, just this center one maybe, and it makes it hold. So I've got my last bead on there. I feel satisfied that I'm not too far away from the intersection I want to tie onto. I want to make sure that all these beads are settled back. And the first thing I'm going to do is get around this guy because it's easy. Okay, so right around that wire that we hammered, our decorative wire, and then if you can do it, try to get the next pass. Ooh, that's going to be tough. Try to get the next pass underneath all of that and back here. I know, she's like, they're like, are you kidding me? So remember that we use map pins, you guys. But now we're up against our stone. So you want to be real careful about the pin and about making sure you don't scratch your business here. So I'm going to slide my map pin right underneath this wire. Not forcing it. I'm just doing a slow romantic jiggle on it. And it lifts slightly. You see that? It's lifted slightly and nothing's damaged my stone. I'm going to keep going and lift the next weave wire as well to see if I can pass it all the way through. Okay, so I'm actually right underneath there with my whole pin now. Just work carefully. Now take your wire. You see I've slipped underneath that one. Let me see if I can get underneath the weave. Ooh, that might not be a possibility. So what I might try to do then, instead of forcing everything, is get a little upturn on the very end of your wire and just hook that one wire that you raised right here. Oh, get in there. There it is. And because it's 26 gauge, it'll hold real nice and steady Betty. So I got one nice loop. I'm going to remove my pin. So now I've got that decorative wire plus my bead balls tied onto the wire underneath, that single inside wire. Push it back if it pulls it forward a little bit. And then take a couple of more decorative coils around this guy so it looks deliberate and like it's part of design. Try to make that look as neat as you can. So just like that. That looks pretty all right. I don't really like that little stretch that I can see right there. Let me see if I can get my plier and just tap that. I should have gotten that a little bit tighter. But that's okay. You're watching this ahead. You'll see that you can get yours a little tighter. Okay? And then I'll break it off. So right here, it has to go under. So you're going to cut it off with about 1 millimeter to spare. Just enough to turn it under. And then right there, turn that wire and get above it and tap it below. Okay, so that's a nice tie. Push those bead balls down. Make sure this coil is laying down, so we'll have to fiddle the coil a little bit now. Yeah, I'll probably retie these now. Get yours a little tighter than mine. I didn't pull tight enough, so I got a little bubble. That's okay. Anyway, that's pretty. Woo! Kind of like that. If you feel like the head of this is still, too much out, and I do, then you can try to press back by doing a bend on it, right? Like we talked about. So I'm going to hold it down here, and I'm going to try to raise almost the neck where I wrapped it. So I've got my finger there, and I'm just going to get behind this a little bit and put a slight upward pressure right there. I think you could see it. And you see how that makes the head of my spiral lay down? It's not springing, out at the top here like it was. I might try to lay this little guy here too. You got to try to lay him down a little bit better. So look at it from all sides and make sure that that can never snag out. Okay, so to lay that tip down, it's all sanded now, so you don't want to scratch yourself up again. So I'm going to try to first get a plier under it and see if I can just pressure it down right there at the head. Yeah, that's enough, actually. Yeah, that should stay. Okay, if not, so here's the other bend I'll probably make right here. See, it's protruding up right here. So I'm probably going to get into it right here, real gentle. Hold this part down. Ooh. Get into the right space. Right there on that corner is where my leverage is. Hold this down. Give a slight downward bend to ease that curve. It raised the tip. So now you go back to the tip. And I'm not pinching it more than I'm just giving it a downward push. And that's probably good enough. So if I can run my hand over it like this and not feel it snag my finger, you know, then that's laid down quite well. And you can see the difference from where we started. Okay? And that's pretty good. All right? If yours isn't going to lay down, you feel like it's not going to stay, you could take one stitch right here as well. Or try to dive something through the weave right here. You know, get it right here and then pass through the weave and tie off to the back somewhere. Okay? So, but that little work should stay. Certainly you can always burnish this and harden it up even more. The bead balls actually feel okay, but you see, if she bumps it wrong, they can still pull out this way. So that's what I'm talking about. They look nice, but will they stay there forever? Well, we make sure that they do. So we'll take tiny wire now, back to 28 gauge. Let's get just a couple inches here, maybe 4 inches. Some scrap 28 I got right here. And basically I'm going to make a pin, tiny little pin, by folding it in half. Little hairpin. And I think if I dive through these right here, all I did was push to the back through that little open space. Pull it through. See, it'll be barely visible. Don't pull so hard that, you know, you distort everything, but you see I've got it anchored right there. That'll keep the balls from ever flying out. Okay? And you don't have to tie on to your nice hammer wire. And then from back here, you know, you can easily stretch over here and probably just tie them off, you know, to one of these frame wires back here. Right? I think I'm going to try to, there's that little curvy one right there. For some reason, I seem to want to do it in there. So that's where I'm going. You go where is most comfortable for you. Make sure that, you know, both wires are pulled back. Get your thumb right there so that it stays. And then you can either feed them one at a time or two at a time. There's that little, you see that little space right there? And I'll stick the other one in there. And I'll wrap that a couple of times. I want to make sure that there's no slack there. But you don't pull so hard that you distort, you know, the beads in the front. And then just try to get a couple of little wraps in there. There's enough room, or should be, with 28 gauge, to get a couple times. Bang, okay? So that's an invisible tie. You see nothing here, and now you see I can't push those beads off of my space. They're really on there now, and then they'll never flap around. Okay, so that's my trick for that. Okay, so let's break these two off, and then you want to make sure that you just scrape that wire down so that you don't feel it. Good. All right, everything's still quite clean back here. Everything's super clean in the front. And we've got a nice little line of beads right there. You know, we could put an additional couple of little beads on this side. We don't have to do a big line, so it doesn't have to be as complicated, but maybe just a couple. There's a little room right there. Let's see. I'll put a little something here. Oh, I might like that better, because then it looks like it just kind of continues over. So let's see. Let's see how we roll on this one. Put one there. And I'm going to anchor right through here to the back. because that's the spot I want to be in. Give me a couple of inches there so I can tie off somewhere. I go a couple inches because you might have to stretch, you know, to tie out. This one's going to tie out right here. But, so my wire's in place. I'm going to go ahead and anchor this guy right here to these two. I'll just go 3 times because that seems to be one of my favorite numbers. Okay, that's on there. Take your cut, tap that cut down and away. Okay, and now you're set to tie, you know, to stack your beads in here. So let's go that tiny, tiny one if I can find him again. Where'd he go? Oh, here we go. There goes my 1 millimeter. And I want it right there. Okay. So let me put my other ones on here. So now I'll go the 2, and I'll go the 3, and we'll see how that looks. You know, so to lay them down, you push them right here, give tension, and then turn them down. Otherwise, they just flop around. That looks super good. I'm kind of liking that. It looks like a little portal, right? Clayton's portal. And if you want, we have probably a little room to go back down and do one more. Small one. Let's see. Okay, I'm liking it. And this shouldn't lift out because it's, you know, only 4 little ones. And there's a crevice enough that I can kind of dive them in there. I'm not afraid of those, you know, breaking out. So I won't go through the trouble. But if you think yours are, you dive right through there with the 28 like we did on the other side. And you tie it to the back. Okay, loving that. Okay, I know you guys are probably freaking out on me right now, but I did not like those ties. So I took them out. I took these beads out. And I'm going to redo this with another spot of 28, but I'll show you where I'm going to tie it off so that I don't see anything in the front. You can do this if you want to yours or not. I'm going to do it to mine. So remember that we anchor in here. Let me see how I can do this to where I don't have that wire in the front because I don't want it there. Sometimes this is how it goes. You take them off, you put them back on, you figure out, you know, where you want things. Okay, so I'm going to get all my beads lined back up. That little one sank in there. Get them all right there. Push them down. Get this turning. Do I need that one? If I didn't have that one, it might be easier to get down there and tie, so I'm going to leave it one short. I had 5 of them on there, but I'm going to just put 4 so that I can be closer to this wire. And now, hopefully, by the grace of the wire wrapping gods, I will be able to get this wire down through this space. And to the back, make sure there's nothing stretched. Ooh, make sure he doesn't dive in there. I'm going to flip it over. Maybe I do these. Yeah, maybe I can go through underneath here. and then I can break it off right there, but my OCD is probably going to make me go through one more time. So I'm probably going to try to do that. Cut this end off. Just once more. Through there is fine. Gives me one more. Ooh. And then I just broke the whole thing off. Okay, I got 2 wraps right there. Whew, it worked. And now I have a nice, tie on those, but it's not to these 2 top wires. And you can see that it's just passing right underneath there. So if it, looks like you can see it too much, you can just scooch it over a little bit. Just tuck it in there. And then jimmy this wire over. And then that's good. And I hope you love that. I think that's cleaner. So it's a tough tie, but it gives you some ideas about, how to not do it out here. Okay? Okay. Woo. Sorry, gang. I had to do it. Push that one over its edge right there. And that's good. And now let's go to chain. Let's go to chain. All right, these 2 loops back here are where we're going to put some jump rings. And the jump rings I like to use, let me get them. All right, the little jump rings I like to use are 4mm, I think. Yeah, these are, I think, 4mm. They're 22 gauge. And I pre-buy these. I don't make these. They're small, they're discreet. If you want to use a big jump ring because you want, the ring to show, then you can do that too. But you'll just open up your jump ring. Jump rings can't be open and closed 20 times, probably twice, before they are brittle and can be weakened. So know that about your little jump rings. They're tight little circles. So if you open and close them once, great job. That's where you want to be. If you open and close them twice, that's all you should be. If you go one more time, they're probably going to break. So there goes 2. Twice I've used that ring. But see how good this Rolo chain looks on here too? I love the Rolo chain. So then I do the same thing. Bring the other side of my Rolo forward. I got some big jump rings on here. Just break these off. You can tell I recycle a lot of stuff. And I'll get another one of my little jump rings. Open it up. Loop my chain. Loop my piece. Get my second plier up here and close my ring. Comes all the way up here. So hold bottom center, hold top center. If you need to go to a line on your board to make sure you got it, then do that. And find the upper center. Break the link. And then this one is small, so I would put 2 jump rings, a loop, and a clasp. And then that is a beautiful chain on this piece as well. I think I'm gonna keep this one on it. I'll use the Rolo. I like it better than the Figaro. And so let me put some clasp on here, and then we have just 1 or 2 little surprises more, and then I'll let you guys go and be done with your Claytons today. But I'm going to show you some fun chain work. To get to the surprise, we'll put the ends of our pieces on here. For the end, to give them a loop, I use a big jump ring, then you don't have to make 2 of them. Just put it on right there. Get your second plier up on it. Close the ring. Okay. So that's the side they clasp into. Traditionally, that goes on the left-hand side because we assume most people will take the lobster claw with their right thumb. So you put the loop on the left-hand side. I put the loop on the right-hand side because I'm just like that. But usually the loop goes on the left, the hook goes on the right, so that they can lobster claw into their necklace with their right thumb, which is the majority of the time. I will change it just because I'm talking to you about it. Let's make it this way. So, you know, if you do it the other way, then they're going to have to do the claw, the lobster claw, or the clasp with the left hand. And that works too for some people. You know, but just so you know, traditionally, it goes on the right side. This is a lobster claw clasp. It's called lobster claw. And, you know, it will take a jump ring to get it in there. So I'll get one of my little ones out of the bucket. Open it up. Through your lobster claw. Through the back of the ring, the last ring. Close it up. Okay, so now let's get to some cutie things. Clayton's beautiful. The chain is beautiful. You've got a nice big comfortable lobster claw with a nice big ring for your customer or yourself. So it's comfortable to wear and put on. Woo, look at that. And now, what else can we do? What else can we do? Well, we can pretty up the chain, because the chain is a dedicated piece to this pendant, to Clayton and to Claudia. So the chain never comes off. So I like to make the chain a little prettier because it's an overall necklace now. It's not just chain that you can go on and off. It's a whole necklace. So after I get my chain attached so that I know how many loops I got to count, I happen to have some azurite malachite beads, same as Clayton. These are a little more on the blue side. Oh, I got a few blue-green ones in there. So I'm going to make a little decorative piece up here on my chain, and that requires breaking the chain again, but that's okay. It's all set up now, so you know where it goes. Okay, so how to do this? We count links. So you get it on your table so you're looking at it properly, because if this isn't level or your loops back there are level, it might be that there's 3 of them over here in the back and 2 of them over here. So you can't really start counting from there. You got to look at the front and see relative to your piece. Okay, so I'm going to start counting links right here at the top. Like this one is, here, I'll turn this one sideways. I got 2 open face loops right there. That's going to be number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll snap the 10th one. Watch out and make sure Clayton don't fall. And I'll just break this link right here. Apart. These 2 are actually quite even. So it'll be 10 from the other side too, because mine are actually quite even. But you can see here you're wanting to get, as close in a similar place as you can. So how many total links I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chain links, and then 11 is the jump ring. So from the jump ring, I'll count 1 link, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total links. Whoop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total links, which means I broke the 11th one and not the 10th one on that side. So there goes the 11th one. So I've got an even amount of chain on these two here. Okay, so let's get this. I like to use either 22 gauge or 24 gauge. 22 gauge is good if you want to do this. 22 gauge round. It's it's not too thick. It has to get through your bead, right? You got to make sure that the wire gets through the bead. And I'm just going to take two pieces of about let's see, what is that? 3 inches, two pieces, 3 inches each. And if you don't have little gemstones like this you want to do, you can do a copper ball, right? That works too. That'd be real cute too. And I'm going to make a loop and tie into this chain. So I'm going to show us how to do that. If you want to mark your pliers so you get the same loop with, each side, you can. And I like to make it about the size of my chain. And just right here at about 1 inch. Take and hold, come forward, push this back over the loop, turn your handle up, bring it all the way around, and make a nice circle right there. Insert, because these are not these are soldered, so they're not open, so I can't just break them open and put this thing in there. So while this is before it's wrapped, while it's just looped, I'm going to come into my chain with it. And you just do a little jiggle until it gets in there. Whee. There it is. Okay? Face the loop. You want it to be a nice loop. Not too big, not too small. I kind of made mine a little weird. And when you get it, you want to wrap. It's a little tough to do, because you got to hold it right there. And let's just go around. Oof. I got Clayton dangling off the one side here, so it's a little weird. Let me get a smaller plier. Your bent nose fine pliers or the tip of your chain nose pliers should be small enough to pinch right there. I'm just holding the loop, and with my other hand I'm making just 2 tiny discreet little wraps right there to get my loop on. Cut it. At a slight little angle like that. Come back and pinch it down. Okay, so you got a clean little coil on that. And now we can slip our decorative bead onto this pin. And hopefully you checked whether or not your bead fits your pin. Okay, and then we'll get this side closed and make sure you got a nice little line there. Get your plier back up here. I'm actually going to make my loop smaller, so that line is kind of big. I'm going to use the tip. You want to make sure the bead is settled. You want to get about 1 millimeter above it. So you want to make sure it's settled to the bottom here. Get right above it. Turn, 90 degrees. Push your thumb. Get the loop, over the wire there. Turn your plier out of the way so it's up here. Take the wire all the way around and get a nice open circle there. Okay? Make that a little bigger. And before you close that, get your chain back up on it. I like to kind of set both sides up. Change my camera so I don't have to keep coming up here into high focus. So I like to get both of them on here and leave it open. Link your chain in, make sure it looks all good, and then you can close everything off. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do this one. And just right here at about 1 inch. Take and hold, come forward, push this back over the loop, turn your handle up, bring it all the way around, and make a nice circle right there. Once the circle is there, then get up here on your chain and link into your chain. This is how we make links, by the way. If we made a bunch of these little links, you could make a whole chain out of these guys and attach it to your piece. So that might be a lot of extra work. I'm not going to do that, but I want to show you how you might do that. Or just add a little one here, just for something on the chain. Since we made 2 on the other side, I'm going to make 2 clean little wraps right there. Let's cut that away at a slight angle. So then pinch it back. Feels nothing. If you feel something, take a little sandpaper there. And then let's drop a bead on it. That's cute. And now I'll come over here, make sure my bead is settled to the bottom of the wrap. Give myself about 1 millimeter, maybe 1.5. Turn it down, push over and around, move your plier out of the way, bring it all the way around that head of that plier to get your loop. I should have enough space there to turn 2 wraps. But before I do, now we're set up on both sides and we'll feed back into the rest of our chain. So you get your chain set back up, you get your hook set back on, the right hand side. And it'll be real easy now to take this last link, hook into your open wire, get your fine plier, because it's a chain, so that loop is there, it's hard to hold, so you gotta hold it like that. Try to hold it so that you can wrap cleanly. Just like that with your bent nose. And now you can take this wire and go 2 very clean wraps around this wire. This one. And there goes 2. Okay, you want to make sure that, if you can, make sure, it's not a big deal, but we want to try to get our cuts, as close and back there as we can. So let me make a focus up here. So you see there's a couple of wraps on each side, and I just cut the wire right there. So take my plier now and give a little tap to that cut end and make that a nice little neck wrap. Kind of munched this one up, but that's okay, my first one that I did. You just tap them and make them clean. Super cute. So now let's get on the other side. My loop is open. Ooh, could have done that one a little better. These are small and it's, my eyes at the end of the day here. So make sure your chain is laid out properly. Get that last link on there. Just like that. Get a bent nose or your chain nose fine plier tip on it. Try to hold it so that you can wrap that neck. 2 nice, close, tight little wraps, just like that. And then come over here. Don't snip your chain. Get your plier right in there and take the closest cut that you can get. And then tap it back. You know, fiddle your loop if you have to. Mine are not perfect. Some people can make these little things perfect the first time. Not this girl, but that's good enough for me. That's pretty pretty. Very pretty. And you can always jiggle it and fiddle it. So now, when we go to sell this and we say we have a necklace, it's not just a pendant with, you know, plain chain. You've added value. The chain's attached, so you have to add the value for the chain anyway. But now you just made the chain fancy. So you can add a little bit more, right? This was a lot of beautiful work. And for those of you enjoying it for yourselves, you know, groovy. Enjoy it. You've earned it. But for those of you who are selling these and in business, because I know a lot of us members are, then when you go to do this, you know, the chain becomes, it just adds all more money to this, okay, the whole thing. So if the chain by itself was 20 bucks, you did this, it's now 30 bucks, right? And maybe you come up here and you do 2 more. So it's a beautiful way to enhance a fixed chain for a piece like this, rather than just having it be plain. Okay, so woo! There's our beautiful Clayton. I love it. I hope you loved this project as much as I did making it with you. And please remember to give me a thumbs up. Let me have comments. And certainly if you're making Clayton, let me see your beautiful work. I love when you guys send me pictures or when you tag me on social media and you share your beautiful creation. All right, you guys. Woo! Congratulations. Much love. And I will see you soon again for the next one. And as the final idea I'm going to give you for this piece, you know, if you want to stick a little bling gem in there, then you can do a little pronged gem. That looks gorgeous.